Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. It can feel like my head is in a spin sometimes as we cover so many topics every day here on this podcast, and today is no different. Because I want to tackle the intersection of marketing and data science, particularly as it relates to improving marketing ROI. For example, a company called Civis Analytics recently released a new product called Creative Focus, which allows brands to do data-driven message testing before they even put ads in the market. And one of their beta users has already seen a 30% decrease in acquisition costs as a result. Now, I also read that they will be releasing a few new products in the next couple of months too. So it feels like an incredibly exciting time for the company. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Chicago so we can speak with Amos Bood, VP of Applied Data Science at Civis Analytics. So, massive warm welcome to the show, Amos, and a belated happy birthday. But can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for the birthday wishes. My name is Amos Buddy. I am the Vice President of Applied Data Science at Civis. I've been with Civis Analytics since it started. So that was in early 2013. And I'll kind of talk about what I'm doing now, but I think the origin story is kind of worth digging into. We were started by, our founder was the Chief Analytics Officer for President Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. And so what that meant was the actual campaign itself, the organization put all of its computer nerds and data people into a tiny conference room where they were put in charge of figuring out how to use all of the data that the campaign was generating to improve all of the different operational goals that the campaign had. So that was, where do I spend $1 billion in advertising? How do I organize this army of volunteers who are trying to have productive conversations with voters? And because the data was very sensitive and because, we didn't want to attract too much attention to ourselves, we had this tiny conference room. And so Civis was actually founded on the idea that many of the innovations that we had to solve for, whether they were technological or methodological, in that conference room, we needed to figure out if companies around the world also needed to solve those problems. And, if anything, we've only learned that more and more the answer is yes, companies need that. So today we work with companies, not-for-profits, government agencies, all kind of working on similar problems of how to figure out how to better engage, better communicate with the customers and the people that they care about.
What a great story. I think that's something that we probably all take for granted now, especially in political campaigns. But I would imagine that when you were working with the Barack Obama team there and what they were trying to achieve, that must have been very early stage and it was very new, wasn't it then?
It was very new. And a lot of the, technologies that have sprung up that you think about, kind of cloud computing and big data, they didn't even exist back then. A lot of the technologies that we're using today have just kind of come to the market in the last few years. And so at the time, it really felt like we were kind of blazing a new trail with, and, it kind of showed all of, there were a lot of times when I was trying to run queries and, systems were breaking and we were having to call up vendors in other states to figure out what was going on. These are a lot of things that we do take for granted now, that databases just work. But, not just 6 or 7 years ago, that really wasn't the case.
And of course, that's just one example of how at Civis you've earned this reputation for taking this science-first approach to solving business problems using person-level data. But what I love about what you're doing is how with a blend of proprietary technology, statistical advisory services, you're actually helping public and private sector organisations find, understand and connect with the people that they care about most so they can stop guessing and start using statistical proof to guide decisions. I mean, can you expand on that and just paint the picture?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good summary of sort of our approach to organizations that we're working with. So I think fundamentally, Civis is trying to help organizations solve some of their hardest problems with data science, in particular, problems that are related to the people that they care about, whether that's a customer, a user, a constituent, etc. And we do this in a few different ways. As you said, kind of blending technology and people to solve these problems. So one way is through our data science workbench. This is basically a technology that lets data scientists get their data together, build their own workflows, deploy models, put that into scale, basically helping kind of weaponize the data scientist to be more than just a researcher and somebody who's kind of integral to the operations of the company. We also have a set of software solutions for business users that solve very specific customer problems. Problems like, did my last ad campaign even work? Or does this message resonate with my target audience? We also have a team of data science consultants, and that's the team that I work on, who are there to just help people get started, who are there to actually solve the problem. If you don't have the kind of team ready to go in-house, we can start with a phase 1 and get you a quick win and then set you up for phases 2 and 3 and beyond to be more self-service with our technology. Our goal is always to help the organization we work with become more data-driven and more self-sufficient. If people can kind of graduate away from Civis and not rely on our services anymore, that's a huge success for us because we've helped change the way that organization works.
So do you think that now more than ever that businesses will succeed or fail based on their ability to use data to make those decisions? And if so, can you just expand on the importance of data-driven decisions right now?
Yeah, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that anymore. And I think, I'm sure based on all the conversations that you've had with other leaders of business and industry, that like everyone is trying to figure out how the decisions that they make can be more based on facts and more based on truth. And the best way for most of them to do that is based on the data that they're already kind of holding on to. What I think people don't understand as much is how much the organizational culture around data really matters. I've seen some organizations that hire a bunch of data scientists, put them on a team, and they kind of just expect them to create value for the company. And then they'll come to Civis and ask why their company hasn't taken off like a rocket ship. And there's usually there's a few different reasons for that. Sometimes the problem is just because the data scientists and the business are just very removed from each other. So they might be working on the wrong thing, or the business isn't set up operationally to change what they're doing. So maybe they find out that there's a better way to do something, but they don't have the means to change it. So I think that's the problem. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of get around it, and different innovative companies do that in different ways. I would say a very important thing is to build the team around a specific outcome. So it's not just we want to be better with data, it's we actually have a specific outcome we care about. We want to lower our customer acquisition costs is a really common one. Well, what are the options to do that? You can change your marketing, you can change your communication around it, you can change your product. But then you take a cross-functional team to figure out, okay, how do we actually do that? What's the data that we can use to inform it? And I think they'll be a lot more successful kind of tackling that from a problems and outcomes perspective rather than just saying data is going to solve everything.
I don't know if it's because we're living in an age of instant gratification and one-click baskets at Amazon and Netflix on demand, but it's funny that you mention that because people just think, well, I'll buy the tech and then that's it, bring me value, and magic it up out of nowhere, don't they?
Yeah, no, that's totally right. And I think that's part of the reason why Civis' services team can be so successful is, we're going to nail in on the outcome that you care about. And whether it's solved through technology or through something custom, we want to make sure that you're getting the results that you need to run your business. And then hopefully that can pivot to a more sustainable long-term solution that scales. And that's where the technology comes into play.
And for any business leaders listening, when it comes to any tech solution, they're increasingly looking for return on investment and delivering value rather than just that another shiny must-have piece of software. So can you tell me more about that intersection of marketing and data science, particularly as it relates to improving marketing ROI, that elusive place? Is it a mythical island?
I don't think it's a mythical island, but what I have seen is that most data scientists within organizations don't work on marketing teams, which is a problem because marketing organizations are sometimes like among the biggest budgets at a company. They have the biggest impact on whether or not the business is going to succeed. But data scientists don't work on marketing teams because it's really hard to get accurate measurements on the things that you care about. It's not likes on Facebook, but it's about growing your business. And how do you link those two? If you're a marketer, you're spending lots of money, you're giving money to Facebook, you're giving money to Google, you're putting money on TV, and it's hard to say what is working and what's not working. And this is something that we've actually thought really deeply about. And I think in a lot of ways, what Civis is doing is trying to empower data scientists on marketing teams with better data, better technology to help answer some of those really fundamental questions.
Now, I also recently read that you've released a new product called Creative Focus. So can you tell me a bit more about that, and also how it allows brands to do data-driven message testing before they even put an ad in the markets, and also the kind of results businesses can expect from that as a result?
Yeah, Creative Focus is a really exciting product for us. We think it solves a complex market problem in a very simple, intuitive way. People at the end of the day want to know if their ads are going to work. Is it going to change someone's opinion about my company? Is it going to encourage somebody to buy my product? Really basic stuff. The way that this is typically done is through very small sample size focus groups, or just kind of testing and asking people if they liked the ad. But one of the kind of fundamental points that Civis has learned through our years of research is that something being persuasive is not the same thing as something being popular. You don't want to reach the person who's already going to buy your product. You want to have your ads convince the next customer to buy your product once they saw it. And that's kind of an important distinction. So we built this online tool. It's very slick. It's easy to use. It lets a user upload different types of ads and content, and then they just press go. And on the back end, we spin up a randomized controlled experiment. It exposes some people in a controlled environment to the ad, measures opinion, measures consumer changes against a control group via a rapid survey. It takes between, typically just a few days to get results back. We've had a lot of success with this product so far. One of our testers is a direct-to-consumer wedding dress company. They're called Anomaly. And they saw a 30% lower acquisition cost with the new ads that were tested by Creative Focus. And that was useful for them because they could quickly see if the ad was going to work or not, pick the one that worked best, and put that into market right away.
Now, I think I think it was a few months ago, or just before the holiday season, that Civis Analytics unveiled tools for a successful 2020 census. So we do have people listening all over the world. But could you tell me a little bit more about the census, the predicted problems, and also how Civis plans to drive increased participation in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it may sound like to your listeners a little bit of an awkward pivot to go from ad testing to something as big and historic as the United States Census. But at the end of the day, the census is trying to solve a very fundamental problem of getting people to answer a survey. There are, over 300 million people who live in this country, and they're trying to count every single one of them. And they have a really big marketing budget to figure out how to do that. And people may not realize this, but it's also fundamental to how the government works. The U.S. Census determines how billions of dollars of federal budget is spent. It determines political representation for the country. And so states and local governments and communities have a really high incentive to make sure that they're counted, because if they're undercounted, then they risk getting lower funding, they risk losing a representative. And especially when you factor in some of the trends that we see in the world around just people being less likely to take surveys, there's generally lower trust in government than there has been in the past. A lot of these groups are trying to take a more proactive approach to ensure that as few people are missed by the count as possible. And so what have we done at Civis? We've kind of repurposed a lot of our tools that we've used in the marketing context to help local governments identify places where undercounting is most likely to happen and help inform what types of messaging is most likely to be helpful. And those are things that we are actively working with a variety of different groups on across the country.
And of course, you guys are located in Chicago, and I'm noticing a trend of more and more startups coming from there. There seems to be a real vibrant Chicago startup scene. Is that something that you can expand on, or have any experience or opinions around its success?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that Chicago has going for it. For one, there's a lot of space here, so we're not running out of room like San Francisco and New York are. But I would say, Chicago is a really big city, and it has a lot of benefits for people who want to start a company or join a startup. There's a ton of talent in the region. We have world-class universities, a large population base, and Chicago is an exciting city. It's kind of a magnet for the rest of the Midwest and all the other universities and schools in the Midwest. And I think there is a really big appeal to life in Chicago that people can. And, you can afford to buy a house here. It's not crazy expensive. You can raise a family. It's something that a lot of people want to do. And we actually see a lot of people moving back from the coasts to Chicago for that reason. And then they get here and then they find a lot of exciting companies to work with. I also would say that there's a really tight-knit startup community here. We don't see each other as competitors, but really as kind of on the same team, fighting for Chicago. We all celebrate it when somebody in a different startup company does well, since we think we want that good luck to rub off on the rest of us.
Fantastic. And back to you guys at Civis. I mean, I've got to ask, what are the biggest challenges and equally opportunities that you're having when building that data-driven world that you're aiming for?
Yeah, I would say a challenge we have. So we're trying to help companies and organizations make really big transformational changes. And the way that you do that is not by building a better widget, but is really by becoming partners along this journey that every company is trying to make to become more data-driven. And what that means from a challenge is that we don't always fit neatly into a single category of enterprise software. We're not just a data science platform. We're not just marketing technology. We're not just a research firm. We incorporate all these elements together to help this company make transformational changes. And that can be difficult as groups are evaluating whether or not to work for us or work with us, rather. And it kind of leads right into some of the opportunities. Like, I think because we're trying to make really big impacts, the opportunities for Civis are really big. And when we have been successful, we've been able to help organizations really change the way that they work. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of opportunity when you're doing that kind of work.
Now, this is the moment where I ask you if you've got any other products on the horizon. I completely understand you probably cannot tell us too much at this stage, but can you leave us with any kind of teasers of what to expect in the future?
Yeah, I can mention a few things that I know that are coming up. We have a few new products that are coming onto the market that I think are going to be really good complements to the Creative Focus product that we talked about before. One of the products is called Audience Center. And what it will do is help the marketer really hone in and target specifically the audiences that they care about. So whereas Creative Focus can tell you the message and what you should say to somebody, this product will help you really hone in on who you're trying to reach. And then kind of the next step after that is you run the campaign and you want to see what worked and what didn't work. And we have a product coming out that helps identify which of the ad campaigns are actually the reasons why someone's behavior changed. So essentially, we're trying to solve the very nebulous problem of marketing attribution, which ads worked, which ads didn't, and which are the ones that actually led somebody to change their behavior.
So if we have anyone listening on their way to the office and they know they've got a meeting later today about data-driven decisions and we've just given that light bulb moment, can you just remind them of where they can find you guys online to find out more information and also maybe even contact a member of your team if they've got any questions?
Yeah, of course. So if anyone wants to learn more about Civis Analytics, just type it into the address bar, civisanalytics.com. I know that we're on all the major social medias, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and they can follow us and see what we're up to. I know that our Twitter handle likes to post data science jokes sometimes as well. So if you're interested in the topic and want some comic strips throughout the day, there are some good ones there. And then, the website will have some information if you want to just reach someone at Civis. People are also feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if they'd like to connect more. My name's Amos Buddy, and you can find me on LinkedIn there.
Now, it's going to be rude of me if I didn't ask, what is your favorite data science joke? You did bring it up.
I don't know if I have a favorite data science joke, but we make a lot of puns in our internal company Slack channel. And we're recording this on Valentine's Day. And so we've been sending each other lots of romantic, punny little notes to each other. And one of the ones that I saw today was, I tested my love for you with creative focus. The results are in. No backlash.
I love it.
Yeah. Insight into how we spend our very productive workdays.
Now, one of the things that's getting quite comical at the moment, of course, is how many buzzwords are surrounding the world of tech. We've got AI, machine learning, deep learning, blockchain. But what I love about what you guys are doing is your motto. I think I saw this on your Twitter. It says data science should provide answers, not buzzwords. And I think that is a very perfect moment to end on. So just a big thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story with Civis today. I appreciate it. Thank you, Amos.
Thank you for having me.
What a great story about how Civis Analytics is actually helping organisations use data to gain a competitive advantage. And for me, it's how they identify, attract and engage their audience that is particularly fascinating. With a powerful combination of best-in-class data, cutting-edge software solutions, and an interdisciplinary team of data scientists, developers, and survey science experts, Civis seems to make the art of making data-driven decision-making look incredibly easy. But of course it's not. I just wish I was half as smart as Amos and his team. But I'm not, so I will remain a digital raconteur instead. But over to you guys. I mean, is your business embracing or struggling with making those data-driven decisions? And what are the challenges and also opportunities that your business is facing? And finally, of course, what did you think of today's conversation? And what are your thoughts around what Civis Analytics are actually offering? As always, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter @NeilCHughes. So I wish Adrian and his team the best of luck in building that data-driven world, but with a motto like data science should provide answers, not buzzwords. I'm fairly certain they're going to be doing just fine. And finally, of course, a big thank you to each and every one of you for accompanying me during today's interview. I couldn't have done it without you. And let's be honest, it'd be pretty meaningless without you. So a big thank you to all of you for being the real star of this show. What I'm trying to say is thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.